Hello and welcome to Blytheway Business News. Today I'm joined by Nigel Robinson, Chief Executive of Central Asia Metals. Central Asia Metals is listed on the AIM market with the ticker of CAML. Nigel, I was going to say we're not talking about mining today because you've just published your second sustainability report, but of course we are actually talking about something now absolutely central to a modern mining company. So looking at 2020, the report you've put out today, what are the highlights in terms of sustainability?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. As you say, sustainability is fundamental to our business these days. And our highlights from last year, in what was, as everybody knows, a very difficult year with COVID-19, and also the incident which we had at our tailing storage facility, TSF4, in September. I think the things we're all particularly proud of is, firstly, we had no health and safety incidents on site, which was very encouraging, showing that we look after the staff. Also, during the course of the pandemic, yes, we did have some instances, but I think the procedures we put in place for the staff in terms of changed eating routines, transportation to the site, the shift patterns and everything we did to reinforce the safety of the staff and the well-being of the staff on site meant that we looked after the staff well over the course of the year. So I think we're pleased with that. Despite the incident at the tailing storage facility in September, which was, as you know, a big incident for us to deal with, I'm very pleased with the way the team managed it in terms of, our transparency, the way we communicated with our shareholders, in fact, all the stakeholders, should I say, not just the shareholders, the local community, the national governments in Macedonia, and the way we dealt with that in an open and honest and transparent way to recover from, what was a big incident for us. And I guess the last thing really that, we have made some significant changes on reporting on sustainability, which is positive, but also functionally we appointed, should I say, a group people manager. We now employ over 1,000 people across the group, and we've never had that specific role within the group. So I think somebody to focus on, the development staff, how we induct staff into the group, how we look after them, is a positive move in terms of sustainability aspects of the business.
Okay, it's almost exactly 12 months since you published the first sustainability report. A year on, a year being more familiar with reporting, how has the reporting itself evolved? What's new? What's different?
Yeah, you're right. It is an evolving. It's a journey that we're on, and we're learning as we go along, as are many people on this. And I think the things that are different, there's probably three key fundamental differences from this year's report from last year's. Firstly, the first report we did was based on a desk-based materiality review of what we thought were the key sustainability topics. And we've had those verified by a far broader, externally managed process whereby we've had stakeholder engagement, interviewing people across the group in terms of different roles as to what they feel is important to CAML. And there's been quite a good alignment with what we initially thought with where we are now, but it's kind of verified that. So I think that's enhanced the report. You'll also notice that the report this morning was to what's known as GRI standards, which is a global reporting initiative standard. There are different sustainability reporting standards. It's not fully aligned across the world, but we believe that's a good standard to report against. So that adds a bit more relevance to some of the reporting measures, which enhances the report and moves it on. And the other final point on it really is that we've now effectively aligned ourselves to, or identified, should I say, 4 of the 17 United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. You may say, why only 4? Why not the whole 17? It's almost impossible to, really practically speaking, align yourself to all 17. So we've chosen the 4 that we think are most relevant to our business. Things such as the no poverty across the group, or in terms of the people we employ and the areas in which we operate, good health and well-being of all our staff, educating the staff where we can, so it's quality education, and decent work and economic growth in the areas in which we operate. What are we doing to contribute back to society in those areas? So I think those three key things are very important and have enhanced the report this year from the first one we did last year.
They do say that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I assume you've put targets into the report. If you have, what about the sustainability targets that you might be setting yourself?
Yeah, targets is always a tricky thing, isn't it, really? And certainly it's a new area like the sustainability where people have reported on it. I think we've always done got a good track record on what we've done and what was the old CSR, but generating some quantitative targets is quite a task in itself. And what we don't want to do is want to make sure that our targets are practical, that we can actually achieve those targets and deliver on those targets, and they're not purely aspirational. It would be very easy just to say we'll go to net zero within a period of time and either throw some money at it through carbon credits or whatever, but we're trying to look at it from a kind of operational basis, as we have done with our production and costs, and see what's achievable, what can we do, and what can we deliver on effectively. And that's something we are looking at. But we have targeted, you know, in each of the 5 key areas that we do have of our key sustainability pillar areas, we've targeted something as something for management to be challenged on in each of those areas: governance, people, health and safety. We've always had health and safety targets in terms of the frequency of any health and safety incidents on site. Environmental targets are harder. Things like greenhouse gas emissions and trying to set a target for that, we feel we have to spend a bit more time and understand how we can deliver on those. So we're working on those. But certainly we've set some targets, and I think the final point on target is accountability and ownership, really, which we're putting as part of the executive management's remuneration targets. So 25% on our long-term incentive plans is against sustainability targets. Some of them currently you might class as a bit initiatives, but we will move towards some harder and faster targets as we develop this process. And the last thing to say on it, Tim, is many of these sustainability targets are longer term in nature. So we want to make sure that the management team that are setting these targets are accountable and they have ownership of those targets, and they'll be the ones challenged with the delivery on it.
Well, okay, so thanks. That's summary. But looking at the year, let's be honest here. There'll be some things you do well, and there'll be some areas where there's still scope for improvement. Give us an overview of both. What are you doing really well? Where do you want to improve?
Okay, well, it's always easier to answer what are you doing, what you think you're doing well, isn't it, than what you're not doing quite so well. And I think the areas we have historically always done well is dealing with the community on site. We've always had a CSR director on site, and we've had somebody there since 2013 at Cunrad. We've always contributed money back to the local communities. We have a policy of 0.25% of our revenue goes back into the community. And looking after the staff in terms of local staff, making sure that we employ local people as opposed to flying in a group of expats, for example, which is often the case in mining operations. So at Cunrad, our employment is 100% at Cunrad are locals, and at 99% approximately at Sasa are locally based people. So a lot of effort goes into recruiting and training local people to develop on the operation. So I think we do those things well. And I guess the last thing I would say we do well, because we've got a good track record on, is the health and safety of the staff on site, in terms of numbers of incidents. So those are good things. What can we do better? There's always things you can do better. Even those things I say we do well, I'm sure we could do some of those better, to be honest with you, Tim. But where I think we do have some ground to make up might be on diversity of staff, diversification of the staff. We certainly don't want to be a company that employs people just to get the numbers right between males and females, etc. But there are a lot of talented ladies out there in the mining industry, and we want to ensure that we encourage them to maybe join a company like CAML, where there's lots of opportunities and the workspaces are, commensurate with employing females in the mining business, which maybe traditionally hasn't got such a good track record on that. And I think the last thing I want to say that we could do, we are developing as we go through this process, is actually integrating sustainability as a function of the business. It's probably historically been a bit disparate. You'll have a HR team, you'll have a legal team, you'll have an environment team. We've put that all into functionally a sustainability team, which covers people, governance, the environment, the health and safety aspects of the business, and the corporate and the local, local community side of it. So we've established teams that look at all those aspects with the relevant skill set to actually make it part of the business, really integrated into the business.
Okay. And so, look, that's the report. It's out today.
Yep.
Looking forward, what can we expect to see in 2021? What's going to be the new initiatives, the new actions you're focusing on in the company?
Yeah, good question, Tim. I think one thing I mentioned before was firming up on some of those broader environmental targets. That's a bit of work in progress at the moment, making sure that they're targets that are achievable, we can own and be accountable for. So that's something we need to improve on, and we will hope to establish those during the course of this year. I mentioned the community work. We've had a foundation, as we call it, a separate legal entity managing all the community stuff at Cunrad for many years now, and we're doing exactly the same at Sasa. That has now been finalised, and that'll be operating for the first time this year in anger, so to speak. We are looking at our greenhouse gas emissions, coming back to these more substantive targets, and we'd look to set some targets that we can, be accountable for over the course of this year. Likewise, on the reporting, TCFD is something which is being bandied about at the moment, and we're looking to instill that into our reporting in the future at the appropriate time. Finally, I think a key one is global industry standard on tailings management. As you know, last August, the new tailings standard came out. Companies like ourselves have been given 3 years to comply with that standard. We aren't obliged to do it. We believe it will be good practice that we install, our standards to that level, and we will be doing that over the next 3 years and implementing the global tailings standard. So that's something we'll do. And on the people side, as I say, we've just recruited a people manager to look after the number of people we have. We're looking at collective agreements across the SASA entity to make sure that we've got that in place for the next 3 years, and generally just developing our staff and putting in some better training for all the staff, and some induction programs for the staff as they join. So improving our management of people from joining the business to exiting and retiring from the business effectively.
Thank you, Nigel. That was Nigel Robinson, Chief Executive of Central Asia Metals. Central Asia Metals operates a copper extraction plant in Kazakhstan and a lead zinc mine in North Macedonia, telling us today about a very modern way of operating a significant mining operation. If you want to get further details on Central Asia Metals Sustainability Report, you can find it on the website. That's all for today from Blytheway Business News. Thanks for watching.